All right, Michigan State takes on Illinois. That's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Illinois is -5 with the total at 142. I won a perfect 5-0 yesterday in my personal bets on BrockPage.com. And that's also going to improve our record to 3-0 in our last three $1.99 daily best plays on that very same webpage. And if you want to access today's $1.99 daily best play, the link for that pick is in the description section below. We're also 3-0 in our last three board member tier package picks on that very same webpage. And just remember, guys, board members get access to every single pick that I give out on that website all the way through the end of January. But despite being favored by 5 in this ball game here, looks like Big Kofi Cockburn is still listed as questionable for Illinois with a concussion. And the Illini certainly have struggled without their big man. And although there's really not much to complain about when it comes to Illinois, they have struggled with Sparty in recent meetings. They lost 7 out of their last 10 ball games against Michigan State, and they averaged only 65 points a game during that stretch. The Illini also failed to cover in 3 out of their last 4 ball games this season, with failures coming against Maryland, Purdue, and Nebraska. They're taking on a very good Michigan State team who won 10 out of their last 11, and they're also a perfect 4-0 straight up as the official road team. Now, when it comes to Michigan State, you really got to be careful of the 3-ball. These guys are drilling nearly 40% of their 3-pointers as a team, and they currently rank in the top 10 in the entire country in that particular category. Malik Hall and Tyson Walker, they're each drilling over 55% of their 3-pointers respectively. Meanwhile, Gabe Brown, he's averaging over 13.5 points a night, along with 4 rebounds and 90% shooting from the stripe. Now, the Spartans are averaging over 75 points a game, and they're in the top 20 in the nation in offensive rebounding. Now, total-wise, when it comes to the number in this one, I actually think the potential absence of Kofi Cockburn could affect the... I think the Illini is going to be affected defensively because Kofi's not in the game. That's what I'm trying to say. Illinois already saw their last 2 straight get over the line, and they're also 70% to the over in their last 10. Meanwhile, Michigan State's 80% to the over in their last 10 themselves. You guys like that dance? Give me Michigan State +5 over 142. Next game, Clemson, Duke, 7 o'clock East. Duke's -11.5, totals 146. If you're worried about this number here with the Blue Devils, pretty big number here. But just keep in mind, these guys already have 13 successful covers on the season already. These guys have been covering machines. So if you're worried about, laying a dozen points here, well, Duke's been able to get the job done, especially with bigger numbers. And of course, Duke's very good covering the point spread at home, as they're 10-3 against the spread at Cameron Indoor. Paolo Banchero, he's averaging over 17.5 points a game, along with 7 boards and a couple assists. Meanwhile, Wendell Moore Jr. scoring over 15 points a game himself, along with 41% shooting from beyond the arc. And speaking of scoring, the Blue Devils are averaging nearly 85 points a game in front of their home crowd. They're also making 50% of their field goals at Cameron Indoor. Now, they're taking on a Clemson team who lost 3 out of their last 4 themselves, and that includes losses to Syracuse, Boston College, and Notre Dame. Now, the Tigers have also lost 4 of 6 as the road team, and their opponents are knocking down 78% of their free throws against them when they put them on the strike. Now, total-wise, Clemson saw 2 out of their last 3 ball games get over the line. Meanwhile, Duke's seen overs recently against Florida State, NC State, and Virginia Tech. I'm going to lean toward Duke, -11.5 in the over 146. Next contest, we're going to go into some Big Ten action. I'm talking about Maryland versus Rutgers, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Rutgers is minus 3.5 with the total at 132. The Scarlet Knights are 10-1 straight up at home this season, and they're limiting their competition to just 58 points a game in front of their home crowd. The Scarlet Knights are also holding their opponents to just 38% shooting from the field at Jersey Mike's Arena. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Ron Harper Jr. is drilling 46% of his three-pointers, and he's also averaging 16 points a game. Now, Rutgers is taking on a Maryland squad who lost 5 out of their last 7, and they're allowing nearly 79 points a game defensively on the road. Meanwhile, offensively, the Terps have been little threat shooting the three ball. They're draining just 31% of their shots from downtown this year. When it comes to the total in this one, Maryland went 4-1 to the over in their last 5 ball games, 70% to the over in their last 10. Meanwhile, Rutgers saw contests recently with Minnesota, Nebraska, and Michigan get over the posted total themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Rutgers minus 3.5 in the over 132. Next contest, a little ACC action. I'm talking about Syracuse versus Pitt, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Syracuse is minus 4.5 on the road with the total at 139. And despite their defensive woes this season, Syracuse has still covered the number in 4 out of their last 6 ball games. And that includes a 16-point outright victory over this very Pitt team during that span. As a matter of fact, Syracuse is one of the best scoring teams in the ACC. These guys have been really fun to watch. They're averaging 78 points a game, and they're actually led by Joseph Girard, who's drilling 43% of his three-pointers. Of course, brothers Boeheim, they're both combining for over 32 points per contest together themselves. Now, they're taking on a Pitt team who's definitely not built for a track meet. I'm not sure if they are built to hang in the game in this one. Not only did they lose 5 out of their last 7 ball games, they're also scoring a pitiful 62 points a game at home. That's on their home court. This could potentially get pretty ugly. And I'll tell you what, equally as bad, the Panthers are making just 27% of their shots from three land in front of their home crowd. So these guys aren't even a threat to shoot the long ball. These guys are a disaster offensively. Now, total-wise, 3 out of Pitt's last 4 ball games fell under the number. Meanwhile, Syracuse went 4-1 to the under in their last 5. The Orange went 70% to the under in their last 10 meetings with Pitt as well. So if you're into historical trends, certainly think about that one there. I don't think Pitt has enough in them to help put this one over. I'm going to lean towards Syracuse minus 4.5 in the under 139. Next matchup, it is going to be Nevada versus Colorado State, and that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern start time. Colorado State's minus 8.5, totals 153. Now, the Rams are currently on a 4-game winning streak, and they suffered just 1 defeat all season long. Colorado State's also one of the best shooting teams in the nation, as they're making nearly 51% of their field goals. Now, David Roddy, he's actually drilling 45% of his three-pointers this season, and he's also averaging 18 points a game. Meanwhile, John Tonji is draining 48% of his 3 balls himself, along with double-digit points per contest. The Rams are scoring 83 points a game in front of their home fans, and they're also drilling almost 40% of their three-pointers in that very same category. They're taking on a Nevada team who failed to cover in 6 out of their last 7, and they simply give up just way too many points. The Wolfpack's allowing over 81 points a game on the road, and they're actually letting their opponents make 48% of their field goals against them in that same category. Now, total-wise, Nevada went 3-1 to the over in their last 4 contests. Meanwhile, Colorado State went 80% to the over in their last 10 meetings with Nevada. I'm going to lean toward Colorado State minus 8.5 in the over 153. Next matchup, it is going to be Texas versus TCU, and that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. The Texas Longhorns are minus 2.5 with the total at 123. But despite being favored on the road here, well, the Longhorns failed to cover in 4 out of their last 5 ball games, and they've got themselves just 1 road win on the year. Now, the Longhorns' biggest problem has been their inability to score. They're averaging just 64 points a game on the road, and they're shooting just 29% from three land in that same category. They're taking on a TCU team who successfully covered in their last 4 straight. They also went 10-1 against the spread in their last 11. Now, the Horned Frogs have played some stifling defense thus far in the year. They're giving up only 60 points a game, and they're also limiting their competition to just 40% shooting from the field. Now, offensively, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Chuck O'Bannon is draining nearly 40% of his three-pointers, and he's also scoring double-digit points a night. Now, total-wise, when it comes to the number in this one, TCU's 75% to the under at home this year. Meanwhile, Texas went 60% to the under in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward TCU plus 2.5 in the under 123. Next ball game. It is going to be Wyoming versus Boise State, and that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern start time. Boise State's minus 5.5 with the total at 131. Now, Boise's been pretty dominant over the past month and a half. They're currently on a 12-game winning streak. They actually play some of the best defense in the Mountain West. The Broncos are allowing only 57 points a game, and they're also amongst the better teams in the country in defensive boards. Now, scoring-wise, Emmanuel Acott is drilling 40% of his three-pointers. He's also averaging nearly a dozen points a game. Now, the Broncos are taking on a Wyoming team who failed to cover the point spread in their last 2 straight. And they actually, when it comes to head-to-head meetings, they lost 9 out of their last 10 games against Boise State. Now, total-wise, Wyoming saw unders recently against the likes of Nevada, Utah State, and Stanford. They're also 60% to the under in their last 10 meetings with Boise. Meanwhile, the Broncos, on the other side of things, they saw their last 4 straight fall under the posted total themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Boise State minus 5.5 in the under 131. Next contest I have for you, we're going to stay on the West Coast. I'm talking about Colorado versus Oregon. That's going to be a 10 o'clock Eastern start time. Oregon's minus 8 with the total at 136.5. Now, the Ducks are on a 6-game winning streak, and they're also winning 80% of their home games. Having said that, though, no, I'm just kidding. I'm going straight Oregon here. They're scoring over 74 points per contest at home, and they're making nearly 50% of their field goals in that same category. Now, Will Richardson, he's also been dangerous from three land. This guy has been just an absolute beast shooting from beyond the arc. He's actually drilling 46% of his shots from downtown. He's also averaging nearly 15 points a game. Now, Oregon's taking on a Colorado team who lost 3 out of their last 4 ball games themselves, and they've been terrible against the number here recently. As a matter of fact, the Buffs failed to cover in 7 out of their last 10 outings, and they're scoring only 63 points a game on the road. And equally as bad, the Buffs are making only 39% of their field goals when traveling. Now, total-wise, Colorado's last 4 straight all fell under the posted number. They also went 80% to the under in their last 10. Meanwhile, Oregon saw 6 out of their last 10 meetings with the Buffs fall under the line as well. I'm going to lean toward Oregon minus 8 in the under 136.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Arizona versus UCLA, 11 o'clock Eastern start time. It's a shame that this one's so late for the folks on the East Coast because this is going to be a great matchup, at least on paper. But anyway, Arizona is minus 3 with the total at 150.5. Now, the Wildcats are on a 5-game winning streak, and they suffered just 1 loss all season long. And when it comes to covering the point spread, well, these guys have already covered in a dozen ball games this year. Benny Mathurin's drilling nearly 40% of his three-pointers, and he's also averaging 17.5 points a game. Meanwhile, 7'1" junior Christian Coloco is scoring over 13 points a game himself, and he's making 64% of his field goals. Now, Arizona is currently in the top 3 in the country in road scoring. They're also in the top 3 in offensive rebounding per game. They're taking on a UCLA team who failed to cover in 5 out of their last 6 ball games. with failures to cover against Utah, Oregon State, and Cal. Now, the Bruins also allow 70 points a game at home, so Arizona could very well put up a lot of points here today. Now, total-wise, 4 out of the Bruins' last 6 got over the posted number. UCLA is also 7-1 to the over at the Pauley Pavilion. Meanwhile, Arizona saw overs recently with Cal, Washington, and Illinois. I'm going to lean toward Arizona -3 in the over 150.5. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are currently 3-0 in our last 3 $1.99 daily best plays. I like Michigan State +5 over 142. Duke -11.5 over 146. Rutgers -3.5 over 132. Syracuse -4.5 under 139. Colorado State -8.5 over 153. TCU +2.5 under 123. Boise State -5.5 under 131. Oregon -8 under 136.5. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are also 3-0 in our last 3 board member tier package picks on brockpage.com as well. And another reminder, board members get access to every single pick that I give out on my website all the way through the end of January. I'm going to lean toward Arizona -3 in the over 150.5. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. If you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, you're going to get access to those picks all the way through the end of January. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Tuesday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.